Hello and welcome. This webinar is focused on caregiver mental health. I'm glad that you are participating in this webinar series, Caring for the Caregiver, sponsored by the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging. The fact that you're here today and you're watching this webinar, listening to this webinar, tells me that you are interested in making sure you're taking care of yourself. So I'd like to applaud you for that right out of the chute, Nat. That is wonderful. A little bit about me. My name is Lorie Thomas, and you can see my headshot there. At least that was my headshot when I had longer hair. It's a little shorter now, but I am a licensed independent clinical social worker. I've been practicing social work for the better part of 30 plus years. I have my master's degree in social work. I also have a graduate certificate in gerontology. I received both of those degrees from University of Nebraska at Omaha. My full-time job is that of the Manager of Transition Services for Region 6 Behavioral Healthcare. And if any of you have been to the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging office, we are one of the offices that are downstairs. We're in the same building, so we are able to work together and share resources with one another, that we are downstairs. I am also an adjunct instructor for University of Nebraska Omaha's Department of Gerontology, where I teach a class on mental health and aging. I am also the chair of the Nebraska Mental Health and Aging Coalition. And you can see down there at the very bottom of this screen is my email at Region 6. And if you have any questions following this webinar, please feel free to reach out to me, lthomas@region6.com. So really, who are our caregivers? And as our population ages, more caregiving is provided by people who aren't actually healthcare professionals. So they're the informal healthcare providers. About 1 in 3 adults in the United States provides care to other adults as these informal caregivers. A caregiver is anyone who provides help to another person in need, such as an ill spouse, a partner, or disabled child, or an aging relative. Family members who are actively caring for an older adult, though, often don't identify themselves as a caregiver, so maybe don't pay attention as much to what one needs to do as a family member caregiver as maybe someone who would be a paid professional working in some type of longer term care environment. But people who do care for other family members are caregivers, so it's important to make sure that we're all taking care of ourselves. We do know that caregiving has many rewards. And for most caregivers, being there for a loved one and someone who needs you actually is a core value and something that we really want to provide. But that shift in roles can cause some different emotions, and it is really common. It's actually very natural to feel angry, frustrated, exhausted, sad, or alone when providing care for another individual, even if that individual is someone who we dearly love. Caregiver stress is real, and the emotional and physical stress of being a care provider is very common. People who experience this caregiver stress, this kind of some mental health concerns for us, because that stress can cause mental health concerns. We very much have learned that during this time of COVID. And that stress can be a vulnerability for us, and it can change our own health risks. So risk factors for caregiver stress can include living with a person that you're caring for. That just living with them can in and of itself be a risk factor. That social isolation can occur when your life is more wound up in providing care and you're not maybe getting as much activity out from other activities. Having depression Financial difficulties is a risk factor for stress. Let's say if you are caring for an older parent and you've quit your job as a wage earner to do that, that can cause a financial burden, and then that can be causing emotional stress. So that can cause financial difficulties. Increasing your numbers of hours that you're spending being a care provider, that can be a risk factor. Having a lack of coping skills or difficulty solving problems. So as we're taking on more and more role as a caregiver, and that stress is growing, it's impacting our ability to cope and to problem solve, which can then impact our own physical or our own mental health. And one of the things that's, I think, an important, really thing to take a look at is that lack of choice in caregiving responsibilities. Yes, of course, we always want to be able to be there for our family members, but sometimes when we didn't feel we have a choice in that can be a drain in and of itself, because it can cause some resentment. There is that change in role description. There can be a grief that could be involved with, you're no longer able to have this life that you thought you were going to have as you went into retirement, or as you went into your later years, or if you're caring for an aging family member, that person is different for you and your relationship with them is different. That change in being the child and having your parent taking care of you, and now you are taking care of your parent. There's an identity change, and that can be in and of itself stressful. So as a caregiver, you may be so focused on your loved one that you are not even realizing that your own health and well-being are suffering. And it's really important that you are taking time to notice where you're at. We're often so focused on what is going on for the person with whom we are caring that we're not taking the time to look at our own needs. So let's turn our focus right now to some of those signs, and it's really signs of burnout, that caregiver stress. You probably have all heard that term and have experienced it in some ways, but let's really look at this list of signs that you may be experiencing some burnout. So feelings of hopelessness, if you just don't feel that there's any hope in your situation, having that feeling, that can be a sign of burnout. It might not be a reality that things are really hopeless, but if that's where your thinking process is, you need to take a look at if you're experiencing burnout. Having feelings of being overwhelmed, or a constant state of worry, or feeling some overwhelming anxiety, feeling tired, having a change in sleep habits, if we're sleeping too much or we're sleeping too little. Either of those changes can be a sign that someone is experiencing burnout. If you're finding yourself having more and more difficulty coping with everyday tasks, it's a sign of burnout. Becoming more easily irritated or angry, like having those little things might be bothering you. Losing interest in activities that you used to enjoy. Having feelings of sadness. Experiencing more physical health symptoms. An increase in headaches. An increase in basic fatigue. If you're having more stomach issues, there's even getting more colds. All of those increase in physical health symptoms can be a sign of burnout. And then overuse of substances. And I'm going to add here, I didn't put it on the list, but substances and food. Food can be into that mix. It's not necessarily a substance, but it can be definitely something that if someone is overeating, it could be very much a sign of having burnout. I'm sure if you have ever flown on an airplane, you have sat through the safety precaution that the flight attendants provide at the beginning of the flight. Before the plane ever takes off, you go through this safety precautions. And one of those safety precautions is that we're told to put our own mask on first. So put that mask on before you help others put their mask on. So if you think about this as part of the safety program, safety protocol for flying is putting your own mask on first. So think about what you need to do to put your own mask on. And I use this metaphor a lot. I think it's kind of takes it a little bit different flair now that we have been dealing with COVID and masks. So when I'm talking about mask in this situation, I'm talking about, your oxygen mask. So make sure you're getting yourself oxygen, putting your own mask on first. And again, going back to this being a safety precaution to make sure that as we are caretakers, putting our own oxygen mask on first is very relevant as a caretaker. So just a word about COVID because it has impacted all of our lives. I don't think anyone hasn't been touched by COVID in some way. But as a care provider for someone, I think it's even more important that you're taking more precautions. And I'm sure that you've heard that. But I think it bears repeating again as we're coming through, hopefully, COVID. But be sure that you are taking appropriate COVID precautions, not only for the person for whom you're providing care, but yourself, because taking those safety precautions for COVID, that's putting your own mask on first. So this time, wear a mask. Wear your mask to protect you and others from COVID. Get vaccinated. That just, it stands to reason that those are really important things for you to be able to be a care provider. You need to be taking care of yourself to help you make sure you're there for that other person. But it's also really important to take a break from COVID news. If we're just hearing about COVID, that can get distressing and it can be influencing us in really negative ways. So take a break from it. We know it's there. We know that the numbers aren't great. We know that it's impacting people. Take a break from it. That's okay. But also really be kind to yourself. Make sure that you're taking steps to be kind. And if wearing a mask all the time when you're with that person is a challenge, take a break. Go somewhere where you can take that mask off. Be kind to yourself. So how do we put our own mask on? Again, now going back to the airline mask. How do we put that own oxygen mask on and taking care of yourself? Self-care is primary. It is just really important. And you can do that by making sure you're eating healthy. And again, if you're one of those people, I'm one of those people who are prone to stress eat. I want to put things in my mouth. But I want to make sure I'm putting things in my mouth that's healthy for me. So you want to make sure that you're eating healthy, that you maintain some type of regular sleep routine. We looked at the signs of burnout and we really looked at how our sleep patterns can be impacted by that. So if you were being intentional about your sleep routines, or I've heard people now use the term sleep hygiene. If you're taking care of that, that's helpful. That's helping you keep your own oxygen mask on. exercising regularly, getting regular physical exercise where you're getting your heart rate up. It's heart healthy. It's mind healthy. Those are all really important things. Set your own personal health goals. So making sure you're taking care of yourself. So if right now you know you aren't necessarily eating well, take a moment, set a goal for yourself to eat healthier, whether that's, I'm going to add more fruit and vegetables to my diet. That's great. That's setting a health goal, and that's taking care of yourself. It's putting your own oxygen mask on. It's also important for you to seek your own healthcare professionally, seeing your own healthcare professional on a regular basis. And so that is really important to manage your own health, is to make sure that you are doing that. One of the things I notice and I see in different people who are providing care to others is that they don't often feel or believe that they can give themselves permission to put their own masks on first. They're a care provider, so it's my job, it's my responsibility, it's my obligation for some to take care of others. But first, you need to give yourself permission to put your own oxygen mask on. And again, you can do that in various different ways. Take a break. Don't think of time off as a luxury. Think of it as a necessity. Think of it as this will help you be a better care provider. We know that everyone can become physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted when in the role of caregiver. So make sure that you are understanding that and that you're giving yourself permission that it's okay to feel stress. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. You are not a bad person when you're having those experiences. Accept help. Be prepared with a list of ways that others can help, and let them help you to, or let them choose maybe what they can do for you. For instance, a friend may offer to take the person you care for a walk a couple times a week. Let them. Or a friend or family member may be able to run an errand or pick up groceries or cook for you. Let them. It's okay to do that. Be able to know what you can and cannot do. It's important for you to really set some realistic goals. So again, we know it's normal to sometimes feel guilty, but understand that no one is a perfect caregiver, and believe in yourself. Believe that you are doing the best you can, and you are making the best decisions that you can at this time, at any given time. Again, setting those realistic goals. Make sure that you can break larger tasks into smaller steps that you can do one at a time. Prioritize, make lists, establish a daily routine. Begin to practice saying no to requests that are draining, such as, if going to a holiday meal, we have Thanksgiving coming up, and if the thought of going to Thanksgiving with your family or with your extended family seems more stressful to you than anything else, then say no. Be okay with saying no. Give yourself permission to say no. Balance the challenge between going and not going. The benefit, I should say, of going, between the stress of, I just flipped that around. Balance the difference in the challenge of going to the benefit of not going for your own personal, emotional, and mental health. Also, give yourself permission to relax. It is really, really important that you take that time to relax, to regroup. Engaging in mindfulness exercises is really important, and I know that different people have different thoughts on mindfulness, but being able to be in the moment, being able to take a step back or do deep breathing. All of that is really helpful, and realizing, um, you know, my thoughts influence my emotions, and my emotions can influence my activities and my choices of behaviors. So being mindful of some of those messages, being mindful of the messages, those negative messages, and turning them around. Again, telling yourself, I need to take care of myself. I need to put my own oxygen mask on first. So that's important. If you're one that engages in spirituality and practice, take the time to engage in prayer. Spend some time outdoors. I happen to be recording this on an afternoon, and it looks beautiful outside, and I hope to be able to get out there later today. But spend time in nature. It can be really refreshing. Um, Identify your own sanctuary, whatever that might be for you, and that's going to be different for every single person. But spend time and identify what your sanctuary is. Find your happy place. If you're someone who enjoys reading, you can physically read a book. I like audiobooks. I like audiobooks when I'm outside walking, so I get to take the time to have a book, get outside, and get exercise, and that's kind of my sanctuary. So, these are all not different things, but it's important to find what is rejuvenating for you. And it's also important for you to know when you need to be alone. It is okay to say, I need alone time. I just need to be by myself when I don't have anyone making any demands on me. That's okay. It's okay to say, I need alone time. But the flip side to that coin of being alone is the importance of staying connected. It is really important to find out how you can stay connected. Again, what works for you. What works for one is not going to work for another, but different ways to stay connected. Reach out to friends and family members. They are important people, and they can help you. Reaching out can be either in person, or it can be virtually. I think one of the silver linings from COVID is people's comfort level and knowledge in how to use Zoom and other video platforms. And when I think about, my own family, my mother-in-law lives in Texas. I have a nephew that lives in Nashville. My husband's brother and his family, they live in Illinois, and we live here in Omaha, and his sister lives here in Omaha. And every Sunday afternoon, we have a family Zoom call. It was one of the ways that we implemented to stay connected, especially with my mother-in-law, who lives alone down in her little retirement village in Texas. My father-in-law passed away several years ago, and we were really concerned with her when COVID struck, and we knew that her support systems were going to be limited. So we started this family afternoon Zoom. And it's been great. We probably connect more now as a family than we have in the last 20 years. So it's okay. It's okay to do it virtually. Better to do it in person, but we're doing it, and we're having those connections. Find ways to support one another. Look for those ways. Be willing to, tell people what you need. But if you also know other people who are providing care, be willing to ask them what they need. Join a support group. A support group can provide validation and encouragement, as well as problem-solving strategies. Sometimes, again, when we're feeling burned out, our problem-solving skills are compromised, and so it's okay to reach out, get that support from someone else. Maybe they can help you through that and help you see things maybe in a different way that you didn't. So people in support groups often understand what you may be going through because they've gone through that themselves. And a support group can also be a great place to create meaningful friendships. So consider joining a support group. and engage in activities outside of caregiving. It is so easy for someone to just lose their identity once they become a caregiver because they take on this role and they take on this responsibility, and it's easy to lose your identity. And I would really, really encourage you to make sure you do not lose your identity as to who you are, and make sure that you are engaging in activities where you continue to define yourself as you. I want to thank you for listening. And again, if you have any questions, my email was at the beginning of this presentation, lthomas@region6.com. Thank you and have a blessed day, and put your own oxygen mask on first.